let's get this out of the way quick. Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion is an indie horror game where you traverse 1,000 semi-randomly generated rooms as it goes from cute try-hard horror to literal nightmare fuel, secret lore included. Icebergs are Come on, you know what an iceberg is. One mustn't look at the abyss, because the haters will dap back. Without further ado, let's dive in. Endless Mode. Endless Mode is exactly what you'd expect. It's the base game except it goes on forever and there are a bunch of changes like new room layouts and you having an X from the get-go. Endless Mode specimens. Apart from specimens encountered normally, there are 5 exclusive to the Endless Mode, referred to in-game as unknown specimens. Karamari Hospital. Karamari Hospital is a DLC where you explore an abandoned hospital and fight off new monsters, secret lore included. Specimen 9. Specimen 9, known as Taker, is among the most dangerous specimens and serves as the game's final boss. The Dollhouse. Dollhouse is the second and currently last DLC released for the game. It introduces a new doll mechanic, brushes up on the lore, and provides an ending to the game's story, I think. The LP Room. The LP Room is a room containing portraits of YouTubers who were the first to play the game. Specimen 6. Specimen 6, also known as Ben, is a life-sized wooden puppet whose name is a reference to the infamous Majora's Mask Ben Drowned creepypasta, and who even resembles the Happy Mask salesman from the game. Speaking of which, references to other media. The game's filled with those, mostly to creepy things. Many enemies are references to horror characters, Spooky's Halloween costume is a reference to a book by Edgar Allan Poe, and several minigames are parodies of real arcade titles like Pac-Man and Dig Dug. The White Cat. The White Cat is an NPC found in room 410 that gives you a bunch of vague philosophical quotes that don't matter much to the story, but might have something to do with the protagonist's psyche since a lot of it is psychology related. You could think of her as our therapist, I guess? PlayStation port. In 2019, the game was ported to PS4. An Xbox port is also planned, apparently, but little is known about that at the moment. Different endings. The game has 2 endings depending on how violent you are. The good ending, which requires you to swing your axe as little as possible, has you oversee Spooky assemble an army and prepare to make people pay for calling her cute. Yeah. And if you decide to beat the living shit out of every enemy you see, you become a specimen and get the bad ending. There's also a joke ending achieved by disabling all specimens, which allows you to just walk through the entire game and have Spooky half-heartedly congratulate you at the end. Then there is the 2 Dollhouse endings where you either successfully seal the demons or fuck up and unleash hell on earth. Build your own mansion. BYOM is an upcoming feature which will allow players to, I guess it's kind of a meme now since it was announced like 5 years ago, but the creators say they're still working on it, so that's cool. I guess we'll get it eventually. Geolabs. Geolabs, short for Generic Lab Labs, is a laboratory in the depths of the mansion started by Spooky's father that conducted experiments responsible for the events of the game. Arcade games. There's a room with 4 arcade cabinets, 3 of which feature mini-games that, as mentioned before, are references to real arcade titles. The 4th one is like lore and stuff. Notes. Throughout the game, you can find notes referencing certain specimens or written by those who've been to the mansion before you, secret lore included. Interesting bit of trivia is that one used to say avoid picking up notes because that summons the Tallman character as a reference to Slenderman, but people interpreted it as actual gameplay advice, so it was changed to insert obscure horror reference that no one gets and misinterprets as instructions somehow. Axe effect on specimens. Different specimens react differently to being hit with an axe, from knockback to stunning to even nothing. Specimen 10 gets an honorable mention though, as attacking it turns it into this scrunkly thing, which deals less damage but can't be hit. Death screens. Each enemy has a unique death screen, which is a creepy, seizure-inducing set of visuals relating to the specimen or what they'll do to you, that appears right before they kill you and before the game over screen.
I'm fucking done editing this shit, bro. I'm done.
HD Renovation. Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion HD Renovation is a 2017 port of the game. While the original was made in GameMaker, and I know how hard it is to make 3D games in that thing, trust me, the port was created from the ground up in Unity, was actually 3D, and featured updates and bug fixes. CatDOS entries. CatDOS is a database with info regarding every specimen in the game. At first, a lot of entries are missing, but as the game goes on, more become available. Alternate Specimen 1 appearance. Specimen 1 takes the form of different cardboard cutouts. In total, there are like 30, but out of them, 2 stand out as being oddly unsettling. The romantic victim's remains. In room 150, there's a skeleton, most likely belonging to the romantic victim, who was one of the people leaving notes for us earlier. The long dark hallway. Occasionally, you may end up in a room with 3 paths, one of which is a dark hallway. If you choose to take it, the walls will gradually close in on you until you can't move, after which Specimen 9 appears and kills you. White Face. White Face is one of the Endless Mode exclusive specimens and the only one taken directly from a different game, that being the indie horror title I'm Scared. Another unique thing about him is that if he kills you, you're given a chance to escape. Different Specimen 1 cutouts in Endless Mode. Another thing different about Endless Mode is that Specimen 1 has a completely different set of cutouts from the base game. Howard. There is a room with a looping section going through which will trigger a creature called Howard to spawn. He can't actually kill you though, and only runs at the player screaming, turning the screen black for a moment. The protagonist. Aside from the opening and a few images showcasing their appearance, we don't actually know a lot about the person we're playing as. From the info we have, however, it can be inferred that they suffer from some sort of mental illness, as evident by the abundance of hallucinations and the strong psychological effect specimens seem to have on us. Sunshine Academy. Sunshine Academy is a mini-game found in Karamari Hospital. It's a handheld visual novel/dating sim where things get progressively more disturbing. Cryotonic Mask. In room 310, there's a wall with a bunch of masks on it. One of them was a reference to the YouTuber Cryotonic, but it was removed after allegations of sexual harassment. Room 310, Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask references. In addition to the other masks being a homage to Majora's Mask, room 310 is also very reminiscent of the Shadow Temple from Ocarina of Time, adding to all the Zelda references associated with Specimen 6. Frenzy. Frenzy is an enemy that, much like Howard, randomly spawns and charges at the player, turning the screen black for a moment. Only difference is she can actually kill you and only spawns when you're not holding a doll. Specimen 4, Ringo, Alternate Forms. Specimen 4 has 2 extra forms in Endless Mode. One is a more detailed version of the original, while the second has an unhinged jaw and 6 arms. The Phone Room. In the base game, there's a room with a desk, fan, and a telephone. If you stay idle for a bit, you'll hear a voice belonging to one of the devs saying hello several times and telling the player to avoid looking at the fan, all being a reference to FNAF obviously.
Hello? I don't know if you want to look directly into the fan. Yes, hello? Hello?
Unlimited Stamina. When you get to room 750, Spooky congratulates you with unlimited stamina, which in reality just makes you unable to run at all. Passwords. By going to the options menu and inputting one of several existing passwords, you can actually skip ahead to certain rooms. The Doll. The Doll is an essential item and mechanic in Dollhouse that serves as the only way for us to heal and can be placed on pedestals to open doors. Specimen 2 Adventure Time reference. Specimen 2, the first hostile enemy you encounter in-game, was apparently inspired by these guys from Adventure Time. AFK Killer. This refers to how, if you stay idle for 2 minutes, Specimen 9 will spawn and kill you. Elevator posters. Throughout the game, you'll find posters hanging in the elevator rooms which don't seem to matter much to the story, but do get progressively creepier and disturbing as the game goes on. Specimen 7 Earthbound reference. Specimen 7 visually looks strikingly similar to the final form of Gygas from Mother 2, most definitely a reference. Unknown Specimen 4 Tirsiak. Tirsiak is an Endless Mode specimen who, unlike other hostile enemies, has a very cute appearance, because the creator was apparently tired of making scary looking ones. Spooky's father. Spooky's father is the one who brought Spooky back to life and is responsible for everything happening in the game. There's a note written by him in Karamari Hospital, and in Dollhouse we even get to see his corpse. The Demon Child. Demon Child is a character that appears at the end of Karamari Hospital and asks us to shut down the place. In New Game Plus, if you use the sword to kill all other enemies, the child will instead beg for mercy. Doug. Doug is a minigame in Dollhouse resembling Dig Dug. You play as a geolab scientist, Doug, excavating the area for a new lab department. The arcade cabinet's design implies Doug died and the game was created to honor him. Copyright incident. Spooky's Jumpscare Mansion used to be called Spooky's House of Jumpscares until 2016 when a German company called Spooky House Studios sent the team a cease and desist demanding a name change. WAM, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. WAM, or Wham I guess, is a shadowy figure that appears in room 557. To make him spawn, you need to turn on the record player and wait for it to stop, after which Wham will briefly appear behind you. As far as I know, he can't actually do anything apart from maybe scaring you. Monster 6, Becca. Becca is an enemy in Karamari Hospital, the only invincible one and the only strong enough to kill the player in one hit. What makes her even more special, however, is that she's actually a reference to Rebecca Black's Friday. I'm not joking. Secret arcade game cutscene. Remember how the 4th arcade cabinet was like lore and stuff? Well, if you approach it and enter a specific password, you will be shown a cutscene revealing Spooky's backstory. The changing baby painting. There's a painting of a baby in Dollhouse that, if looked at long enough, will gradually become more disturbing. The brain. This refers to a room in the game containing a giant glass jar with a brain inside. In HD renovation, it's actually possible to break the jar, in which case the brain kills you. The seal chamber. The seal chamber is a room in Dollhouse that's responsible for keeping Spooky and other souls tethered to the dimension. Depending on the player's actions, the souls freed from it at the end are either good or bad. The sword. The sword is an item found in Karamari Hospital's New Game Plus. You can use it to kill all the monsters and unlock a secret ending. The scare chair. The scare chair is a chair in Karamari Hospital that induces creepy hallucinations if you sit on it for a bit, after which you're forced out and a silhouette appears seated there instead. If you then hit it with a sword, the silhouette disappears, allowing you to sit down again, after which the screen begins shaking as you hear violent screams before you get a game over. Specimen 12's host. Specimen 12 takes the form of an old Victorian mansion with the ability to possess a person, referred to as the host. In the game, the host is an old man with a sickle, and by going through the notes, we can theorize that he was a vlogger filming videos about abandoned urban locations. It's also speculated that in the bad ending, the player becomes Specimen 12's new host. I mean, it's a person wielding a weapon, so I guess it checks out. Spooky is left-handed. Yes, apparently Spooky is indeed left-handed, because that highlights her demonic nature? Wow, thanks a lot. Should I feel offended? Spooky's backstory. From the lore and stuff cutscene and the Karamari Hospital note, we can discern that during Halloween, Spooky scared a veteran suffering from PTSD, who instinctively shot her dead. Her father, unable to cope, started a giant research effort to bring her back, which eventually went south and led to the events of the game. However, in Dollhouse, we actually find out that it was Spooky's father who shot her on accident, and he just blamed it on some homeless guy. How American. QB drawing. This refers to a poster of the character QB from Madoka Magica that can be seen in the classroom area. Room 210 Han Solo. In Room 210, you can see what appears to be Han Solo frozen in carbonite. The killer deer are Specimen 8's children. There's an area resembling a giant forest that's populated by hostile deer. Specimen 8, who has a deer-like appearance and is first introduced right after the forest section, refers to them as his children. Carl. In Karamari Hospital, there is a closed bathroom stall that's out of order. However, in New Game Plus, it's possible to open it, in which case you'll be greeted with a bloody toilet. Flushing it will result in Carl crawling out of it, screaming loudly, and then disappearing. The original Specimen 10. Specimen 10 is the only enemy in the game to be replaced with a different one. While the current version is an armless humanoid with a deformed upper body, the original resembled a giant worm. I'm not entirely sure why he was replaced. After some research, it really just seems like everyone thought he was lame. So much so that the devs originally wanted to remove him from the game entirely, but then decided to keep him for a brief moment before the new Specimen 10 erupts out of his head, killing him. Holy shit, they must really hate him. Secret cat DOS entries. By selecting Modify House Layout 6 times and then clicking on Specimen 9's file, it's possible to access cat DOS entries for specimens that don't appear anywhere in the game. Monica. Monica is the name of Spooky's mother. Not much is known about her except that she died at 39 and was buried within the mansion next to the Geolabs facility. Subject tanks. In the Geolabs testing area, there's a room with glass tanks with so-called subjects inside. One of the tanks is broken and most likely belonged to Specimen 3. Room 210 Cult. In Room 210, you can find notes referencing a certain cult performing rituals to appease the darkness, but not much is known, so I'm sure it's nothing to worry about. Clicky. Clicky is a doll encountered in 2 specific locations in Dollhouse, either crawling on the ceiling or hiding behind metal plates on the ground. In both cases, she only follows the player's movements and makes clicky sounds, so she's not a threat. Room 165 Japanese translations. In Room 165, there are post-it notes with Japanese text on them. While the first few are innocent, translating as cat, dog, fish, and bug, the last one means wounds of evil. Secret death screens. This refers to deaths only the dumbest players can get, like how repeatedly touching the barbed wire in Dollhouse gets you roasted literally and figuratively. Dollhouse secret ending and code. In Dollhouse, there's a wall you can walk through, which leads to a maze-like section, which also has a wall you can walk through, which leads to a thing with jumbled letters. Entering a code near the thing leads to a secret death screen. Specimen 7 symbols. During the Specimen 7 chase, runes are depicted on the wall. Their meanings remain unknown, but it's speculated that they may have something to do with the protagonist's past, since Specimen 7 is said to only be effective on subjects with trauma. Unknown Specimen 3 is Spooky's friend. Unknown Specimen 3, also known as Spooper, is yet another one of the Endless Mode exclusive specimens. This entry refers to how suspiciously similar he is to the person standing next to Spooky and comforting her in the Lore and Stuff cutscene, possibly meaning they are the same person, or at least connected somehow. The Vent Face. In the Alt Geolapse part of the base game, you can briefly see a creepy face looking at you from the other side of the vents. Specimen 10 Altered Cat DOS entry. This might refer to several things, either the fact that Specimen 10's entry was replaced just like the specimen itself, or that the old entry can still be seen sometimes, albeit glitched out. Ringo's original theme. Specimen 4's chase theme was actually replaced at one point with a similar but less music box-like track. Another thing to note is the name change from the original Breakfast Was Too Early to the new Breakfast Was Too Late. Clown Spirit. The clown is an entity found in Dollhouse that moves whenever you're not looking. By reading the notes, we can find that Geolapse tried to summon a happy human ghost, but instead got something that scared the subjects. Although we don't know enough about that something, it should be noted that the clown cannot harm the player, so the spirit isn't evil at least. Well, that's good. Specimen 10 and 11's binary messages. In the background of Specimen 10's dev screen, you can briefly see a string of binary code which translates to "You are more than just an animal. Use the soul you've been given, and be responsible for your actions." Similarly, Specimen 11's dev screen also contains binary, which translates to "Believe in God, but question the teachings of men." Weird take from someone who looks like the devil, huh? Specimen 4 is the fourth specimen because the word 4 in Japanese is similar to death. In Asian culture, number 4 is considered unlucky because its pronunciation is often similar to that of the word for death. Since Specimen 4 has strong Japanese influence, it would make sense for her to be the fourth for that reason. However, that's actually false, as during an interview, the game's creator admitted that it was just a spooky coincidence.
Number 4.
Oh, that wasn't like a deliberate connection to the whole Japanese significance of the number 4?
I didn't think about it. Yeah, it's just a lucky coincidence.
So, wrong. Fake news. Slander. The specimens are previous victims. This refers to a theory that the specimens were once just like us and ventured into dimension only to fail and meet their doom. Some evidence pointing to this being the case is Specimen 12's host, a Geolapse note where the writer says that something is growing on their skin, possibly them turning into a specimen, and the fact that in the bad ending Spooky says will make a fine specimen, perhaps implying that anyone deranged enough can become one. Like Twitter users. Specimen 1 only had 3 forms. In the early versions of the game, Specimen 1 only had its slime, ghost, and skeleton versions, with others added later on. Specimen 12's notes are from the host. Specimen 12's notes can be theorized to have been written by the host, the old man, because in one of the notes the writer mentions how he found a sickle in the forest. The protagonist is weak-willed, has mental issues, and/or suffered from past trauma. This theory can be backed up by the fact that several specimens are noted to be significantly more or only effective on subjects suffering from trauma, and given that throughout the game we encounter hallucinations quite often, it's safe to say we're not doing the best mentally, although that could just be from literally having to go through 1000 rooms in basically one sitting, since if you stay idle for too long Specimen 9 kills you, so I guess the theory is not foolproof. Unit 731 reference. Unit 731 was an undercover research unit of the Japanese army during World War II that performed lethal experiments on humans. In its CAD-DOS entry, Specimen 9 is said to be a survivor of said experiments. Moreover, just before the final boss fight, Specimen 9 says, "I'm taking all those logs they keep throwing out, and I'm nailing them together," which is a reference to how Unit 731 subjects were referred to as logs in official documents as part of the cover-up. It also implies that Specimen 9's final form is an amalgamation of the dead bodies of all the other victims, which makes the fight infinitely more terrifying. There were originally 760 rooms. According to the YouTuber GameTim in his 100 Facts About Spookies video, there were originally 760 rooms, with the other 240 added later. However, apart from the July 21st, 2015 Steam update, which implies that there were less than 1000 rooms prior, I wasn't able to find any more proof of this. So if anyone knows anything, please share in the comments. And this is it. The entirety of the Spookies Jumpscare mention Iceberg. It's my first time doing this, so if I messed up, I apologize. Huge thanks to Snowball SP for creating the iceberg and actively helping with research. Support the video if you enjoyed it and would like to see more icebergs. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.